everyone, it's Katie here. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit today about growth mindset. So this is something that I've really kind of started to develop and focus on mostly this year of 2020. I feel like given all of the world events with the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns and the quarantines, it has kind of given me at least an opportunity to really shift my mindset around what it means to grow. And hopefully when you're thinking of growth, you think about it similar to the way I do, in terms of it's not just about or even, I guess you could look at it this way, but it's definitely not all about growing your bank account. That is definitely just one tiny little portion of the pie when we talk about growth. And growth is really so multifaceted. There's so much that it incorporates, and I'd love to touch on some areas of growth that we can work on and focus on. So I'm going to get to those now. So the first area of growth that I want to touch on is actually spiritual growth. For me personally, I think that I like to approach life in general and growth in terms of spirituality as the foundation. For a lot of people, I've noticed that spirituality comes later, whether it's later in life, when they kind of start to awaken to, wow, I live my whole life being very sense-oriented and focused on the material world and acquisitions of things and money and status, and then later they realize that their life feels a little bit empty without some kind of a connection to a higher power, right? Or just later on in the day, maybe once everything else is done, then now I can dedicate some time to meditation or to prayer or to connecting with spirit in some way. My approach has always been the total opposite of this. I believe that spirituality and our connection to this higher power, something much bigger than ourselves, the fact that we are small in the whole of creation and we're part of a much, much bigger whole, is at the root and the foundation of everything I do. So I find that carving out a little bit of space for it in the morning or throughout your day, and especially if you're younger or wherever you are in your life, it's a perfect time to start to develop a relationship with a higher power. And there are infinite numbers of ways to do this. I'm not particularly a religious person, but I see the value of religion in many people's life, and it has had value in my life in some alternative, non-traditional ways. So whatever way that looks like for you, there's a way to do it. And spirituality and spiritual growth has a lot of connotations. So I think especially now with the yoga and the comeback of the hippie movement and just meditation and spiritual practices, it's there. A lot of words are thrown around a lot, but I want to kind of try to demystify for people what some of these words mean. So especially spiritual growth, for me, the term is very important. It's something I speak about and utilize a lot in my life. But what does it mean to grow spiritually? It's often very hard to measure because we can't quantify it. It's not, again, like using the bank account example, where you're at because you can look at your bank account numbers and see. But for spiritual growth, it's immeasurable. It's there's an intangibility to it because it's an essence. And I would like to offer some kind of a framework for spiritual growth, because I do feel that there are certain things that we can utilize to measure our progress by. Otherwise, we'd feel kind of like we're running running on a treadmill without getting anywhere if we didn't have anything to look at in terms of measuring our growth. So for me, how do I measure spiritual growth? Number one would be non-reaction. And by non-reaction, I just mean, another way to put this is responding rather than reacting. So when we react to something, it's coming out of our wounds, it's coming from our unconsciousness, and it's coming from being triggered by something within us that needs to be healed. So whether someone says something, does something, rejects us, something negative happens in our life, when we react to it in a way that is immediate, angry, and it's coming from a lower vibration, the amount that we do that can be a really powerful way to gauge, if we're being honest with ourselves, our spiritual progress, our spiritual growth. So ultimately, the goal is to develop a sense of calm, a sense of presence, and of being so completely one with ourselves and our truth that we are able to constantly respond to life from a place of consciousness, a place of love, a place of understanding. So this would be one of the first, yardsticks to measure spiritual growth. Another would be non-attachment. So particularly in Buddhist streams of thought and religions, there is an emphasis on non-attachment as one of the pathways to spiritual liberation, enlightenment, awakening. And really what this means is that we as humans are oftentimes ruled by our attachments. And attachment ultimately comes from fear, because anything we are attaching to that is not, no matter what it is, really, is because we are feeling, are misperceiving a sense of emptiness or lack within us, and feel that we need to fill that or add to it. And it's just misperception, because it's not recognizing the inherent fullness, wholeness, and completeness that we already are. So attachment is just trying to increase our value or worth through attaching to things or having them attached to us. And so that's why, the practice of non-attachment allows us to simplify our life, to become, we're already whole, but to embody and actualize our wholeness without needing anything external. And we can also attach to internal, non-tangible things, such as an identity, our ego, a status, and that's still an attachment, needing to be liked, even if it's not, a particular item or relationship or something external to us. That does not mean it's not an attachment. So there's a lot of work to be done around releasing attachments, and feeling that we are, non-attachment is not having a preference, basically, over what happens. And this is a really, powerful but challenging lesson to learn, is not having preferences. So what's another yardstick by which we can measure our spiritual growth? I would say tolerance and compassion come along here as well. They're very similar to, I would say tolerance kind of falls under the first one I said, which is non-reaction, because tolerance is having a sense of patience and understanding, for more so for other people, than maybe life itself, but life as well in ourselves, and it's developing this ability to endure and to deal with whatever is in front of us. And compassion, again, is really extending this love, this tolerance, this patience with all of those that we share our lives with. And the compassion is definitely a representation of our spiritual growth because it is so challenging to develop. I do believe that to be truly compassionate, we actually have to start with ourselves. We have to find self-compassion, which I feel stumbled onto one, maybe two times in my entire life. Is I felt, this overwhelming sense of compassion and love and care and concern for myself, like bringing me to tears like I was, a young child. And that's what ultimately our hearts need to be so open that we feel that compassion for everyone around us, including ourselves, because we are all just children of the divine, and we're all doing our best. And compassion is really feeling for someone in a universal sense, feeling for the whole, and being there to hold space. The last one for spiritual growth that's coming to mind is the cessation of desire. This kind of goes along with non-attachment in a way, but to transcend desire is one of the highest forms of spiritual enlightenment and liberation and attainment. Now, there's a lot of misunderstandings around desire, and I think I'll save that for another video. I don't know if I can get too deeply into that here, but basically the more that we desire, the more that we feel we lack. And this is a really challenging one, also because desire is what fuels creation. So everything is dependent on our life stage and our state of consciousness, actually, because there are times in our life where we are meant to desire and create, and or we're at a particular consciousness stage of evolution where, again, that is what we're here for. So if you're in one of these stages and then you're being told by me or hearing from someone else that you're not supposed to desire things, that could be really confusing. And I don't want to propagate any more misunderstandings in the spiritual community, but I'm just talking about, one of the highest levels that you can achieve, which, it might be for you, it might be something to aspire to, but ultimately we realize all is Maya. This body, these trees, the environment, everything and person we see is illusion. And so when you truly, really, really get to that understanding, it almost becomes redundant to try to create more, because you realize that, unless you truly want to, for whatever reason, why go to all that effort if it's just a grand illusion? So moving on, we're gonna keep talking about the growth mindset. So I hope you're following along. I just finished spiritual growth as a mindset and why that's important. And I started with that again because I believe it is the foundation of everything else in our life. And so if we can really get that down and really understand it, then everything else just flows so much easier. Okay? The next thing I want to talk about is emotional growth, actually. And this one, again, can be challenging to quantify, but at the same time, I honestly think a lot of inner spiritual work comes down to honesty. If we're really honest with ourselves, we know how deep we're diving, we know how much we're allowing ourselves to feel and to heal and to process. We all have dark pasts, you know what I mean? We all have traumatic events, even if they were from childhood, that we don't even remember, that we blocked out, or any number of things that happen that have hurt us or some way, and they were profound lessons. There's actually gifts and blessings in those. But it really is up to us to for how much of that we are processing, working with in a healthy way, registering, becoming conscious. It's all about consciousness. And what I learned, especially, I'm going to talk about this for the emotional and the mental growth levels, but is anything that stays in our subconscious is kind of out of our control zone, our power zone. So typically if we want to make change in our life, real solid change, we actually have to dig into our subconscious to work with, transmute, heal, uncover, learn from what is there, to and make it conscious in some way, so that we can create art with it, utilize it for new ideas, or just heal it and become more whole, healthy beings. So emotionally, emotional growth is all about letting ourselves feel. And this can be either the hardest thing in the world or the easiest, depending on first, how we're wired. So we have to remember that everybody's wired differently. Some people are wired to actually enjoy emotion and revel in it and swim in it and love it, and they can be vulnerable, or they can be, they can express themselves easily like it's nothing. And other people really struggle in this area, and they have a lot more walls up, defenses, guards. They vulnerability is like a foreign, disease to them that they never want to participate, because they don't enjoy feeling A, out of control, or B, like they're letting their guard down where they can get hurt, vulnerable. So, try to see, like, where are you along the spectrum? You might be in a few different places, because in some areas you might be, a little bit more open, vulnerable, willing to feel and do the work, but with certain things you might be very closed off. So just taking some inventory is really helpful here. One of the only ways I know to really work on an emotional level is meditation is number one, but not guided. I say this not with any disrespect to guided meditations, because I think they're amazing in certain contexts, but when we're doing deep emotional work and trying to grow emotionally, we actually need to just be with ourselves, because having someone else's voice tell us what to focus on, or that pulls us out of our own emotional awareness, because we're receiving from someone else who is not us. So that's why it's really important, if you want to be serious about doing emotional growth work, is to meditate on your own, silently. And my technique for this is, and you can try it with me now briefly, just to sit, close your eyes, and just to feel whatever you are feeling. This sounds really simple, but it's actually super profound. Because the whole thing with emotional growth or emotional awareness is that many of our emotions are actually extremely nuanced. I believe that a lot of what we were taught about emotions is too primitive and simplistic to truly capture. I feel emotions every day that I have absolutely no name for, and would never want to try to put a name on it, even if I could, because that takes away the subtle texture of that emotion, okay? So just sit and feel. I know I just spoke about not having words for emotions, but I'm going to, for the purpose of this video, try to give you some emotions of what I'm feeling currently, or some words, because it might help you to think in a way that you're taking notice of your inner state. And that's the only reason I would do this. So I'm feeling open. I'm feeling engaged. I'm feeling alert and aware. I'm feeling strong, capable, powerful. Let's see what else. And I'm feeling, for me personally, like there's a veil here that I'm wanting to take off, you know? So it's like I can feel, by tuning into my subtle, you know, what my body and my emotions are telling me, I can feel that there are layers that I am ready to release, almost like a snake shedding its skin. We all have many layers of skin and of energy that we can release. So that was just a little bit of what I was feeling, but it's even more powerful if you do it alone and don't label, actually. I want to do that for you guys, but it allows you to actually listen to yourself, because so much of our lives we are not listening to ourselves or remembering ourselves. We are giving our power away to others, to our environment, to whatever work or thing we're doing or listening to or reading or watching. So it's a really good habit to get in, and this helps us to open, clear emotional blocks, and to return to ourselves and to reclaim our emotional power. So this is my best technique for emotional growth. The only other things I can mention are listening to music that really resonates with you. This is a powerful one for me because I love music so much. But whether it's sad music, if you're sad, if you're feeling really excited, pumped up, energetic music. But music is one of those things, the quality is there and the emotional impact is immediate. So music, you can watch movies to get in touch with certain emotions, depending on, if you need to up your humor, your sense of humor, like lightness about life, or maybe you need to, get a real serious stoic movie and really ponder things. And then the only other one I know is to discuss your emotions with a trusted counselor. So by counselor, it could be a therapist. It could be a good friend. It could be a family member, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, even a child. Just someone that you trust, and somebody that, a grandparent, if you have a grandparent, or an aunt or an uncle, or, somebody that you trust. For me, I have friends. I'm grateful to have a family that supports me, and also a therapist who is one of my best friends. So, but keep in mind, if you're not quite ready to open up to others in that way, or share, a therapist, I would recommend therapy to anyone, because even if you don't think you need it, we all need it in some way, I believe, and they're just great to get things off your chest, and they're non-judgmental, and they're impartial. If you get a good one, hopefully they're spiritual and they have some spiritual foundations that can really help you. But I was gonna say, if you don't have someone, you can always record yourself, or journal. You can write your feelings down. So the last thing I'll say with emotional, this also kind of goes into spiritual. Write down your dreams. Having a dream journal is so valuable, and I am just so grateful that I started that. It's really giving me insight about myself, and I would recommend it to anyone. Okay, so moving right along, we're going to talk about mental growth or intellectual growth. What does that mean, and how do we achieve that? So many ways, infinite, but just gonna list off some of the big ones. I think reading is really underrated. I read every single day, whether it's a book, an article, but I'm constantly expanding my knowledge, whether it's learning something new, something I'm already really passionate about. I think it's so important to read. What I've noticed over time, because I do it so often, is that it really expands my vocabulary, and my ability to communicate is so much better. When you read a lot, you don't realize this, but you're not just assimilating what you're reading and that knowledge, but you're actually having a better grasp of the English language and how to communicate. Especially when you read many, 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 many different sources and books, it really gives you a much more holistic view in the world, because you're almost like downloading the knowledge from those people, but you're also like getting all these different perspectives and ways to talk and communicate and words to use. And so it's so valuable to read. I think mental and intellectual growth is also about perspective, personally. I've talked to a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but definitely a handful that have even admitted that they are incapable of seeing things outside of their particular perspective. And that is okay, honestly. We all have a unique personal perspective for a reason, so I honor that. And I think it's good to always honor and listen to your own. But for me, that's never been the case or the problem. I've always been able to see things from almost every, not every perspective, but like so many different unique ones that I'm always like changing my perspective or trying to open and expand it, because I think that's the only way that we can truly get a grasp on certain things, because our own is very much geared in a certain direction, and while that's important for us in our life path, to never veer off of that, or at least try, I think could be limiting. So I would say perspective, and you can get perspective by changing it willingly, trying new things. This is really good for honestly emotional growth, to try new things, meet new people, take risks. Emotional and mental growth, it opens up your mind in new ways. You're forced to create new neural pathways, and I know this is backed by science. When you try a new skill or learn something new, or go somewhere new, even travel to a new place that you've never been, these are important things to do to get outside of our comfort zone, to grow our minds. I also feel that creativity, creating something, putting things out there, even if, and not that you have to share it with anyone, but like just to, whether it's, making some music on your own, or drawing, or writing something, anything. You can write from your own perspective. You can write a novel, you can, maybe if you love film or photography, you can, take pictures. There's just so many ways to be creative, and I feel that we're here for such a short amount of time that it's just kind of like, if you don't try anything creative that interests you genuinely, what are you doing? But you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really good way to achieve growth, is to try new things and reach for new perspectives, and open your mind to what someone is offering you, even if you don't think it's of benefit to you. If it's in your life, it's always there for a reason. Let's see if there's anything else I can think in terms of mental intellectual growth. I guess the only one I would say is to watch a ton of videos. I do that. Like even YouTube is just so powerful when you find the right people, something you're interested in, like to just absorb it in that way can be sometimes, just different and sometimes better for certain contexts than reading, or for certain people it might be a lot easier to retain that way. Also taking online courses. Don't underestimate the value of paying some money for something. If you are passionate about it, if it's furthering your education, if it's gonna, whether it's your professional life, your personal life, something that has to be something you're passionate about. It has to be something you believe in. But do it. Invest in yourself. Invest in your mind and your education, because that's what's gonna set you free. Nothing you buy, no, new car or new amount in your bank account or piece of clothing is going to give you what you're looking for. Only your skills and your achievement and your growth is going to give you that. And that's why I'm focusing on growth today. So the last one I want to talk about is physical growth. So in this sense, I personally believe that it's actually the last not the last level by worse, but the last level to receive the growth. So I do feel that it starts at the spiritual. Our growth starts there, and then it goes to the emotional, and then it goes to the mental, and then it lands at the physical. And so if we've been doing the growth on these other non-physical or non-tangible levels, the growth in the physical is going to be easier. It'll come more naturally. It might happen on its own a little bit, but of course we're physical beings. We have bodies. We need to eat to live to a degree. But I mean, physical growth to me, and I say that because I am a huge proponent of fasting. I also love food, and I eat food to a large degree, and I love food. So, but I have recently come to really value the power of fasting for mostly physical health, and I would say physical growth, because when you fast, you're actually clearing out your digestive system. You're giving it a break, and our digestive systems are what keeps us going. Our metabolisms are going 24/7 to process all the stuff we're putting in it. And think about it, it's like having a laptop, a computer, and never turning it off. Never. And some people do that. I used to do that. I actually used to like always keep mine on. Now I'm getting a lot better at, turning it off at night, because it's like a system, and it needs a break. It needs to sleep just like we do. And so when you start to figure out like what's really good for me, what's good for the things in my life, you start to realize that rest, breaks, non-action are really important values to adopt. So when I talk about physical growth, I think fasting is invaluable. Meditation kind of, it's a spiritual, but it's also physical, because it's been proven. Look it up. That meditation, it slows down your physical body so that it can actually, you can breathe better when you're meditating. You're taking deeper breaths, each breath is fuller, it's more full of air. You're slowing down your heart. It's not beating and working so hard. So there's so many benefits to meditation, fasting. But how else can you grow physically? I do believe that, a healthy, overall, besides those, a healthy and balanced diet. I think balance is so underrated. Balance and moderation. So find balance in your life, eat when you're hungry. And like, by balance, I don't mean the contemporary balance, as in always eat 3 meals a day and always do this and conventional, whatever. No, you have your own inner balance, and you have what works for you. So for me personally, I am never ever hungry in the morning until, it varies, but like maybe between 11 and 1, sometimes 2. So I can wake up at like 8 or 9 and not need to eat. And sometimes I will nibble on a little something in the morning, but like, I know my body, and if I eat at that time, I'm gonna feel tired and sluggish and like stuck, because that's not when my body wants food. So really listen to yourself, because your body has a wisdom, and I think body wisdom is a huge part of physical growth, because when you listen to your body, you allow it to give you feedback, and you listen to that feedback, and then you can change your life, because our body's like a vehicle. It's almost like if you have a car, listening to your car, like if it makes that funny noise and it's like a clicking noise as you're like running down, you're like, okay, something's kind of wrong. Like for me right now, my car's in the shop because it's been overheating. So I know that there's something, like, I'm not gonna just like let that go. There's things that you can do to maintain your car, to maintain your body, make sure they work at optimal, efficiency for you, for your safety, for the safety on the road, for your safety in life. And then the last thing for physical growth, obviously, is exercise. So there are infinite ways to do this. I would say choose the one that works for you. Some people love the gym. Some people love hiking, walking, jogging. I'm a hiker and a walker. Running, I don't really run, but I jog occasionally. But, even stretching, just like to stretch every day. Yoga, dance, Tai Chi, Qigong, oh my god, mixed martial arts, sports of any kind if you love sports. I mean, there's so many ways to get your body moving. You don't even have to call it anything. You can just move, like whatever way there's a certain thing called either ecstatic dancing or trance dancing, and I would recommend that you look into this because, in my opinion, this kind of encapsulates all, oh, what a beautiful breeze, but it encapsulates all four of the areas I was talking about. So the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual, because you're really getting into like an altered state of consciousness when you just let your body move, let the music move you, and your emotions are moving and flowing, your mind is, you know, being set free, your spirit is being connected, and your physical body's moving. So that is a wonderful idea, and I hope that this video helped you in some way. I love talking about growth. It's something I'm very passionate about. You know, and all of what I talked about is directly tied to your self-worth, which is directly then tied to your financial worth and your bank account. So don't think that I left that out. It is important to, you know, money has some kind of value right now in this society. Not sure for how much longer that'll be, but hey, you know, as long as you're doing what you love and you're helping people in some way, there's nothing wrong with money, and it's just an energy. So if that's important to you right now, there is a way to achieve financial growth at a steady, consistent rate. But in my opinion and in my experience, you do have to have those other areas kind of down for you to like really get that one, because everything is connected and it's all one entity and it's all integrated. So we have to get integrated and we have to get aligned if we want to see the best positive results in every area of life. So that's all I have to say for you today. I hope you'll have a blessed day. Enjoy this beautiful weather, if it is as beautiful where you are as it is where I am. And before I sign off, here's the view for you. This is our view. Bye-bye.